Hello, and welcome to this new series 9 Bodies in a Mexican Morgue. 9 survivors find themselves in the midst of nowhere in the typical survival thriller 9 Bodies in a Mexican Morgue. At the Aurora International Airport in Guatemala, 8 passengers had boarded an aircraft to Houston, Texas, but the pilot, Octavio Fuentes, lost his way because of a malfunctioning GPS system before they could get there. He emailed multiple requests for immediate assistance and attempted to get in touch with the authorities, but nobody answered. Octavio had to make an emergency landing in the tropical forest of Mexico after the plane eventually ran out of fuel. 9 bodies arrive at the Mexican military barracks at Los Trios at the start of the first episode of 9 Bodies in a Mexican Morgue. Officer Lopez told Captain Gabriel Vega, his superior, that they had discovered these corpses arranged in a line in a pit. He wasn't entirely certain who had killed these 9 people or how they died, and I suppose the next 5 episodes will reveal that to us. Although Vega didn't particularly want these bodies in his camp, it appears that their superiors gave them orders. It was fairly clear that someone had sent these bodies to a dilapidated camp near Los Trios in an attempt to hide the entire situation. A couple named Emilio and Cora de Leon were also introduced in the episode. They were watching the camp from a distance. These 2 chose to wait for the authorities to transport the 9 dead to the morgue, as if they were also interested in them. They probably intend to steal the bodies or perhaps anything from within. Immediately after the jet crashed in the woods, the passengers recognized that they would have to cooperate if they wanted to escape. They so made the decision to introduce themselves to one another rather than remain strangers. Amy McLean, who married her husband Dan in Vegas around 5 weeks ago, is the first passenger. When they boarded the plane from Guatemala City and found themselves in the forest, they were returning to the United States after spending their honeymoon in Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala. According to a brief exchange between Amy and Dan, Amy's father is a rough guy who frequently appears in the media and is probably hazardous. Although Dan has seen Amy's father on TV and read about him in the press, he has never met him. It appears to be an Honora tale, with the gender switched. Travis and Lisa Davies, MAGA supporters who operated a network of motels in Kansas and Oklahoma, were another American couple on the aircraft. They were taking a holiday in Guatemala and heading back home, just like Amy and Dan. Zach Ellis, an insurance investigator traveling to Guatemala for work, was the 6th traveler. He had to report a fire in a city depot that he thought was the result of arson rather than an accident. After completing the report, he was also heading back to the United States. Kevin Anderson, a physician who specialized in medical equipment, was also on board the aircraft. He purchased inexpensive surgical supplies from Guatemala and resold them in the United States, making a profit. 2 additional travelers are unwilling to divulge personal information. Sonia, an Englishwoman, claimed that she was visiting Guatemala in the same way as everyone else, but you should not believe her. Next up is the enigmatic Carlos Lucador, who claimed to be a Mexican wrestler known as Lucha Libre, though I'm not entirely sure what he does. Additionally, he had been keeping his bags close together, which raised suspicions among the other travelers that he could be concealing something. Indeed, it is too cliché to assume that he is concealing narcotics. Finally, we have flight attendant Beatriz Ortega and pilot Octavio, but we don't learn anything about them because they both passed away on the first day. After Kevin operated on Octavio to cure his ruptured lungs, someone choked him to death, and Beatriz broke her neck in the collision. The sudden failure of the GPS system wasn't a coincidence, in my opinion. Long before the plane took off, it may have been tampered with, probably because someone wanted it to crash in the middle of the forest. Octavio was a local who might have known our mystery killer, which could be one of the reasons he killed him in the dark. Even though everything currently points to Carlos, the dubious character who, to bolster our suspicions, was performing pull-ups at night, I still think there's more to this story than meets the eye. One of these 10 individuals might have survived the wilderness, and this could be our killer, who had been eliminating the survivors one by one before lining up their remains in the pit, according to the conclusion of 9 Remains in a Mexican Morgue Episode 1. The person who killed the other passengers probably wouldn't have had an original passport on them, but the Los Trios officers already had 10 passports in their possession. However, if they were, it would be simple for the authorities to link the IDs with the bodies. and discover who is missing. Isn't that right? There won't be any mystery in that scenario, though, and if they want to look into it, we can discover who killed them in the upcoming episode. Let's see how it all plays out in the upcoming episode, but in the meantime, please leave your thoughts about the potential murderer in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this episode with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more of these exciting recaps.